Hello and thanks for checking out ChartGuys.com. We're proud to be one of the most successful technical analysis communities online, teaching you the skills to become a more confident, effective, and informed trader. Join our community of hundreds of analysts worldwide working together to learn the charts, generate profit, and achieve financial independence. For access to daily live chart analysis and market coverage, a thriving chat community, along with dozens of hours of exclusive educational materials. We look forward to seeing you. Let's check out some charts. Hello everyone, looking at some Canadian MJ here. We're going to look at MJ, WEED, ACB, APH, MJN, and there's been a lot of talk about all the ETFs, and it's definitely worth knowing about those ETFs and knowing who's in their holdings. We have a lot of these lower cap names getting some exposure to these ETFs. It's obviously only a bullish thing, but in terms of my game plan, it has completely shifted where if we were in stable market conditions and you're still in a bullish uptrend for the S&P 500 and overall markets, I would absolutely be looking to play the momentum and hype based around those ETF holdings. But because of where we are at in the overall market, I am changing that game plan and I'm not interested in those smaller names right now because, in my opinion, what the overall market is doing with its volatility while it tries and finds a bottom to this dump or might continue dumping, that is the overbearing most important factor here, in my opinion. And it really is drowning out any of the potential hype and bullish action that we would see normally in those small names. So some of them are definitely going to still see some bullish action, but in terms of being in a very easy, beneficial market for that kind of play, this is not that market. So I am shifting my game plan strategy and focusing on the big names for now, relative to what the market is doing. So let's just talk about that correlation real quick, because again, correlations are constantly changing. It doesn't mean they're gone forever. It doesn't mean they're always going to be here. They're here, they can be here half a day and then disappear. So it's always worth monitoring these two comparisons of the S&P 500 or the TSX or both of them compared to the Canadian MJ sector, just to see where we stand in comparison. Are we more bullish than the overall market? Is the correlation strong? Has the correlation faded? And again, it changes literally it can change every 5 minutes. It can change every couple hours. So it's always, that's why people have charts, you know, screens and big monitors with multiple charts stacked next to each other so they can watch these correlations. So, you know, today, the S&P 500 was green. It had a pretty decent day for the bulls, yet the Canadian MJ space was red aside from MJ. MJ was green and reflecting the S&P 500, but our big names were mostly in the red. So you might say, okay, well, the correlation with the market wasn't there today. Well, all you need to do is zoom into the 5-minute time frame and see, look at how significant this correlation is. We had the all-out dump at the end of the day on yesterday. And then today, look at this action. It's just completely mirrored with, again, the candlesticks are WEED and the background is the S&P 500. And then look at this divergence. So it's completely linked yesterday afternoon, all morning. And then as soon as we hit here at noon, as soon as noon comes around, look at this correlation break and we go inverse. We go SPY bullish and weed bearish. And then, of course, the bulls picked it back up again. And then at the end of the day, we did correlate a little bit. Look at this sell-off candlestick. There was 15 minutes left in the day, and we had a sell-off candlestick in the S&P 500, and WEED did the same thing. So we can have a very strong correlation. It can break for a few hours and then pick right back up again. So that's why it's important to always have your eyes on it, because it is always going to be relevant to some degree. So checking in on MJ, we have the low of the dump, which is our must-hold support level for the bulls to try and continue higher lows and higher highs. And we have our key high of the bounce resistance. We have another resistance level, the high of yesterday, and now we have a daily inside bar. So it's as simple as tomorrow a break of 32 is bearish and a break of 32.43 is bullish. Very low volume, very tight range. If we break 32.43, we look to 32.82 and then up to 33.93. If we see a bear break of 32, I'm looking at 31.79 and 30.36. So I'm watching this tightening range, and we're going to see a break tomorrow. SPY, the S&P 500, was a daily inside bar as well. If it's a bull break, we'll look to see if these names can follow through with some bullish action as well. But just look at the daily chart on WEED, a much weaker candlestick. It's not an inside bar. It's a lower high and lower low. And I'm not touching anything. My rule heading into this week, and yesterday only affirmed it, was wait. Let the trades come to me. Wait for odds, setups that have the high odds in my favor. So I made a general rule. I said, all right, I'm not touching Canadian MJ as long as we're in this range. As long as we're in the range between the low of Friday and the high of yesterday, I'm not touching Canadian MJ. Are there trades to be had within this range? Yes, there's shorter term trades. There's some 5-minute oversold bounces. There are trades to be had, but in terms of knowing that I can trade cryptocurrency or oil or the S&P 500. I have all these other instruments to trade. I'm going to wait till Canadian MJ gives me a favorable setup. Then I'll be back to playing Canadian MJ. So I'm waiting for a clear bull break or a clear bear break. And right now we're in no man's land right in the middle of that range. So for WEED, I'm looking at support of 26.12, but the key level for me is 25.23. And I'm looking at key resistance of 29.50. So we could trade within this range for the next couple of days. It all depends on the amount of volume and volatility. ACB, similar pattern on the daily time frame. So the range that I'm watching here that I'm not touching while it's in between is the low and the high. So it's 10.50 support and 11.71 resistance is the range that I'm watching. One of those has to break. If it's a clear bear break, I'll look to short MJ. If it is a clear bull break, I'll look to see which individual name is the strongest, and we'll look to play that. APH, very similar setup. So we have our low of consolidation, high of the bull attempt yesterday. So 1487 key support, 1679 key resistance, and we're right in the middle of that range. Slight favor for the bears where we stand in the middle of this range. And MJ, you can see in the middle of its range, is favorable for the bulls. So MJ as a whole is holding up a bit better than the individual names here, WEED, ACB, and APH. So that's notable. We close at the high of the day, and none of these big names close at their high of the day. So there's a couple factors there. You know, it tells us that the smaller names, not the major holdings, are driving MJ bulls with some strength. And again, that could be due to these smaller ETFs buying up some of these smaller holdings. So I don't have the answers in terms of when does the ETF start buying, and you know, do they start buying once they go live, or have they already been accumulating their assets? I don't have that answer, but I can tell you that right now, when we see that the major names are not seeing a strong close, but the ETF is seeing a strong close, that means the smaller names in the ETF are making up for the weakness from the bigger names. So MJN, to wrap it up, very, very tight. And it's one of the tightest names here, but I'm looking at key support of 866 and key resistance. We've got 966, 962, 960. So three tops in the 960s, and we got a couple supports in the 860s and 870 range. So that's the channel I'm watching. If it's going to be exact, it's 866 support and 966 resistance. So a nice dollar range. We've been within this range for 4 days. Patiently waiting. We close at the high of the day here as well for MJN. So again, a different close comparative to the other names. Bulls trying for a bull MAC decross and a higher low and then a higher high. So for all these names to hit higher lows and higher highs, a long way to go to break the high of this bounce and see follow through. And we're going to need the S&P 500's help to see that happen. So that's where we stand as we head into tomorrow. Tightening ranges. I'm in no man's land, not touching it until it breaks those ranges, just sticking to that rule, putting the odds in my favor. I appreciate you all watching, and we'll see you in the near future.